welcome here today, and I'm really, really pleased to have one of the genuine greats from within the industry with us today, Mr. Russell Manning of Manning Stainton. How are you today, sir?
I'm very well, Simon. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time.
You try and say it without that hint of glee. I know how difficult it is. You were saying off camera, weren't you, there, Russell, that the days of you bouncing around these events they're not there anymore. You don't fancy it anymore.
Well, I think everything has its time, Simon, and the team here, busy, doing well, making their own connections, and which is great. Yeah. And my lad doesn't want me down there getting in his way either, so that's fine.
That's another dynamic going. We're going to get onto all of that though, anyway, because Success Leaves Clues is the series here. It's one of our influencer series, and I'm really keen to understand what drives some of the main people. I was going to say, not just that I've come across in my career, but actually have just been absolutely grounded in the industry as it has, and of course we're sat here just on the back relatively recently, haven't we, whereby you've acquired Ryder and Dutton, and now there really is, to use the old Game of Thrones analogy, a King of the North. There's a business that there hasn't really been the like of, have there? Or certainly as far as I've been aware. Pretty much, is it 50 offices? It's around 50 offices, isn't it?
The group in total, yeah, we're not far short of 50.
That, but which is amazing. You got the only other one I can think of really down south is Chancellors, and that you two are fitting a very neat demographic at the moment. So first of all, congratulations on it.
Thank you.
They're a great team over there. So I think it was a really natural fit as well, wasn't it? Almost uncanny fit in terms of when you looked at the two maps.
Yeah, I think the team here have been very keen to do something for quite some time, and we've been talking, looking at various opportunities, and the idea of going across the Pennines onto the dark side, awesome. Here in Leeds, was quite an interesting opportunity, and it's one we've been talking about for quite some time. In fact, COVID got in the way, the lockdown, because we initially had discussions with Ryder and Dutton, probably far back as 3-4 years ago. COVID obviously hit, lockdown hit, so we also had to focus on what we were doing, and that we started the conversations again, and it went well. It was a natural fit. I think their dynamic is a bit different to ours, because we've got a young team here that runs this business. I'm not involved at all anymore in the day-to-day stuff. I'm sit up the sort of top of the tree as the chairman. I think their main shareholders and owners were, let's just say, of an age on the whole. Some of them want to see a route out, and they've got a really good bunch of people in the middle.
Yeah, got some great people
who just need to be let go and let them get on and do it. And so far, so good. It's a really great bunch of people. The people remind me of our people, actually.
I was going to say, I mean, genuinely, from an outsider's point of view, there are a lot more similarities, I think, than differences there. The cultures are actually quite similar. If one culture characteristic is similar, is you both like to give Simon Whale a load of grief, which most people would say is a very sensible thing to do in this industry. So that's great. And Richard's great, isn't he? As you said, I think he's looking forward to enjoying the cricket.
Great guy, absolute gentleman, in fact, and probably the people who a lot of people don't know, because he's a very unassuming guy, and he's been a gentleman to deal with, and he's very keen to see the success of Ryder and Dutton continue, and I hope we'll very much, we'll be able to do that for him and with him and with the team.
Beautiful. Well, obviously, best of luck with that. For Mark, not that you guys will need that at all. Can we just roll it all the way back though, in terms of just give us a background in terms of where it all started for yourself, and in terms of how it all developed? I think that'd be really interesting just to understand that dynamic first.
This is what I bore all our new starters with. They also say to me, how did you get going? You poor thing.
And then an hour later,
my team was sat listening and go, oh, bloody hell, he's off again. Well, actually, I was a failed lawyer, or attempted to be a lawyer. Like most agents, some of the guys I've spoken to, very few of them sort of wake up and be like, oh God, I want to be an estate agent. I've got to be an estate agent. So you tended to have a go at something, probably. And in my case, I was attempting to be a lawyer joining a family practice. I didn't really work hard enough at the appropriate qualifications. So I was left sort of scratching my head and thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Mum and Dad would give me a bollocking for not working hard enough at school. And I was very fortunate because I was introduced at the time to a relatively small agency business in Leeds. Guy was sort of getting towards the end of his time. And he was said, well, why don't you go and have a chat with this fella and see, you might quite like the idea of being in the estate agency world. And actually I did. I mean, I like property anyway, really interested in property. I like people. I got there and I realised that I like this. This is pretty good. It was only a small business in the middle of Leeds city centre, and stayed with him and then another firm for about, probably all told, about 4 years. And then at the grand old age of 19, 20, I was left a bit of money by my grandfather.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go and do it on my own, which was terribly arrogant. I had no idea. I thought,
so just on that, so did you, I mean, that is a young age, isn't it, to go and do that? Have you always been very confident in yourself like that, or did it feel like, oh God, this is a bit of a gamble at that stage?
I come from a background, family-wise, of family businesses.
Yeah.
So we were all used to the idea we work for ourselves. That was ingrained in me, if you like, from a young age. So the idea of working for somebody else in the long run just didn't seem to fit my DNA, really.
Yeah.
I was doing quite well with these people, and I thought, well, there's nothing I'm doing here I can't really do on my own. And because I had this little bit of money, a friend had an office in Leeds city centre, which he was prepared to give me the keys for. I thought rather arrogantly, in August 1980 or something like that, I'll have a go. Sorry, 1976, what we're talking about. August 1976, opened the office. In those days, the thing that helped me get going was there was a lot of people sold privately. So you used to get as it was, the Yorkshire Evening Post in those days. Open the paper on a Friday afternoon, and there are all these private adverts, little lineage adverts, as they used to call them, and with their phone numbers on, please telephone, da 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 da. So every Monday morning, I used to get my pen and I circled all these adverts, and I'd ring all these people. And I'd say, hello.
That was prospecting before it was prospecting.
That was prospecting. That's all it was. Nothing's changed, you see. And he used to ring them up and say, hello, how are you? I'm Russell Manning. How did you get on over the weekend? And he'd say, oh, we haven't had anybody around. Oh, really? Oh, tut, 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 tut. Well, look, how about we come out to see you? And, a number of them said, yeah, all right then, go on. And the ones that didn't, you'd say, well, look, I'll give you a ring in a week's time. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, all this stuff? And off I went.
I think it's fascinating. For ages we've been waiting for the cyclical for sale by owners coming back and everything else, and people are obviously getting on the phone to private landlords and doing the same. And actually what you've highlighted there, what are we actually, 76, almost 50 years later?
Here we go.
The conversations are pretty much identical, aren't they?
This is what I see when I go around our branches, and this is what we're doing a lot of the time. From there, it was a leap from the city centre. The biggest step I made, actually, was going from the Leeds city centre, where all the agents were at that time, into the suburb. And I got the opportunity to open an office in North Leeds, which was a revelation.
Which was the first one there, was it?
Moortown
was, okay, yeah.
Leeds. And I remember the first day we opened, and this lady came in, and she said, oh, I'm wanting to sell my house. Can you come and see me? I thought, aye, I'm onto something here. And of course, virtually no competition in those days in the suburbs. And we really flew from there. We opened 4 branches within 3 or 4 years, and ended up selling that business, in fact, to William H. Brown.
All right. So just going back there a little bit, though, you talk about almost the uncontended. Had you identified that as the reason to go out to the suburbs, that there really wasn't being serviced?
Yeah, it was a bit. Again, in those days, we didn't do a lot of strategic thinking or business planning or consulting. Premises up in a very busy residential area, and I looked at a big shop window, and I thought, you know what? I think I like this. Just a gut feeling more than anything else.
It is funny, isn't it? You can talk about, famously these loads of agents now are watching to see where Waitrose open supermarkets, because that shows them. But actually, your gut feel in terms of, no, this feels right to me. This is the shop for me. This is the place. Still, really is a key element, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just, it just felt right, and the opportunity came along, and I've learned over the years. You get opportunities from time to time, and sometimes you say, right, let's do it. It's just you can think about it forever if you want, but the opportunity is there. And that's what made the business. That was really in my view, that was the foundations of what became a much bigger business. But the culture of that office, the way we ran it, the way we dealt with the marketing and all that stuff is what we do today, just albeit on a much bigger scale.
Well, I'm going to come on to culture a bit later. But one thing I was really interested to understand there is, and again, you're not allowed to cut me off straight away, and it's really the question is, I suppose, how humble are you? What did you learn from those first, the first people you teamed up with and everything else? And have you retained any of that throughout your career, or did it just change as you went?
I think I've told this story quite a lot at various different interviews and things, and I won't sort of bore you about it, but I dealt with a particular client in my very early days, and it was a very difficult sale. There was a lot of emotion involved, family problems, all sorts of different issues. And really the sale of the property was sort of a bit of an academic part of the whole process. It was a life-changing process for them, and created lots of problems and lots of issues in the family. And I realised how much emotion was being built up in what was going on, aside from the process of the sale. I then read a book by Tom Peters called In Search of Excellence, which I'm sure many have heard of, and that was recommended to me. And my father had also been in a business where very much customer driven, customer focused. And I realised very, very quickly that we were, sounds a bit corny, but it's true, we weren't in the property business. We were in the people business. And that's probably,
is that fair to say that's quite a way before a lot of people started identifying that? I mean, that's a very common thing for people to say these days, but it probably wasn't back then, it's fair to say, isn't it?
No, I'm going back to, in those days, most of my competition was the old traditional chartered surveyors.
Yeah.
They built a good quality surveying business and a bit of estate agency on the side, whereas my business was all about estate agency and about sales of properties. So it was all about the people who, both customers and clients, but also our own people who work with us to get those people what they needed. And it was all about the people. It always came back to the people. So from that day onwards, and it's something I've always instilled in our team, it's all about the people. And I know it sounds corny when you say that, but I don't believe we're in the property business.
It's not corny if it's true, though, is it? That's the point. It's only corny if you have those slogans on the walls and then don't, the customer comes first, and then don't believe in them and don't practice them. Yeah.
And I do, and I still do to this day, as much as I ever did. And I've seen nothing that's changed my mind. I don't believe it can be commoditized. I think it's a very emotional experience for most people.
Yeah.
The team who do the job have to work very, very hard. They get a lot of stick because people are going through a difficult process. So it's not, we're not in the property business. I don't believe we're in the people business. And I've always said that. Anybody who knows me, tell me all the way back to the beginning. Once I got that in my head, then everything we did was based around that philosophy.
So how else did that affect in tangible ways? How did that change the company over the years then? Was it, I suppose there's obvious ones about the way you recruit people. It would be whether they had that people skills intrinsically in their nature.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay.
We like people who are outgoing, have got independent personality, like a bit of fun.
Yeah.
More than anything else, again, a bit of an overused word, maybe passion.
Yeah, I've seen you. By the way, I've seen your Christmas videos, so I know about the whole fun element of that.
And we do like to have fun. We work hard, but the team, we have to play hard. We've not been able to do that much in the last couple of years, which is a shame. But we our reputation for our awards dinners and our summer parties and our company videos and all.
Do you think that, Russell, just on that, sorry, do you think that company culture really helps you through these, obviously, what would have been difficult times as well?
Oh, Simon, I can tell you something. When we left the office on the 23rd of March last year, was it? Yeah. When lockdown was announced, probably all my years being business, that was probably the most frightening moment I've ever experienced.
I remember speaking to Mark and actually Richard in separate conversations, and as we all did then, that was the car crash of all car crashes, and we all wondered what was it going to be, wasn't it?
I've got to tell you, I'm not just saying this because the way our team responded during that process and the way we came out of that lockdown was just unbelievable. And you talk about going beyond. they were absolutely incredible.
Isn't it amazing how many businesses, that had a lot of the team on furlough, the rest of the teams that picked that up, but, and rode with it. And that phrase, I mean, they always talk about technology doing more with less, but to do that from individuals, it's not like those people weren't operating almost at the top of their game. It's incredible, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I think that's, for me, two defining moments when you talk about the people thing. One is the lockdown and how the team responded and came out of that lockdown and dealt with some very difficult situations, some clients who were having real problems.
Yeah.
And of course, we had the crash in 2007 when we were all flying away. We almost sort of knew something was too good to be true.
Yeah.
The shit, excuse my French, the shit hit the fan. And we all know what happened with Northern Rock and the rest of it. And that was also a very, very scary moment. But again, the team responded in the most incredible way and got us into a really strong position very, very quickly. And so without that team determination and to rise above what's going on below you, it's very difficult to do that.
It is at the time. I mean, famously, some of the corporates, even after the doors opened, you wouldn't know they were still in business, did they? Literally,
no.
The mail's piling up, they're not seemingly answering the calls and everything else. So that gap, I mean, I don't know when the trend always seems to be these days towards the best are getting better and the rest are staying down there. But that was demonstrable like never before, wasn't it?
Yes, very much so. I think it's all, everybody can do it when it's good, when it's easy, relatively easy. Everyone can do well, everyone can make a bit of money and look at them something, aren't I clever? But it's only when the chips are down that do you really see the strength of your business. And you've got to be honest with yourself about that.
Yeah. Do you think there, I mean, one of the interesting things is, and I haven't seen it quantified actually in our industry, but lots of people talk about how actually some of the best companies in the world and indeed products were launched in, in downturns, in recessions. And I've heard lots and lots of people over, certainly for my own niche thing in terms of software, 2008 onwards was the making really of us becoming the software of choice. Do you think there's a lot to be said for that actually the time where things like market share changes dramatically?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the best, the biggest opportunity you'll ever have in a business is when things are really tough.
Yeah.
There's a great book if you're interested in property, commercial property. I think it's called The Property Business or something like that. It's all about what happened during just after post-Second World War.
Okay.
Mainly around in the commercial property sector.
Right.
Out of bombed out sites and an economy that was absolutely on its knees and turning from a war environment. People saw an opportunity. And I think it's true to say the biggest opportunities are when things are the most difficult. But it's just very hard to give you.
Hard to see them at the time, isn't it?
Hard to see them. And it's also very of the confidence to say, well, do you know what? Let's do it. When
you is it literally, can you, I don't suppose you can quantify it anymore though, because you'll have been through, obviously, been through many recessions, you've been through tough times and everything else there, that stability to just say, hang on a minute, I've seen this kind of thing. But I mean, COVID's the interesting one because we've never seen this before because none of us around during Spanish flu or anything, but the other ones, it gives you a degree of kind of confidence to be able to tell the younger members of the team, hang on a minute, we do know what to do here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I certainly remember 2008, 2009, when things were really tough.
Yep.
We'd gone from selling, I don't know, probably the thick end of 500 houses a month. And in March 2000, I can't remember if it's 2007 or 8, I'm getting a bit old, that dropped down to about 145. It's a pretty scary thing. But I do remember sitting in our meeting boardroom at the time with my business partners, and we said, right, what should we do, lads? And I said, I know what we'll do. We'll chuck a load of money on this. We put some money in reserve.
Yep.
And we said, right, let's ramp up the marketing. If we can't get the volume, we're going to have to increase our market share.
Yep.
So we ramped up the marketing when everybody else was cutting back. And we had enough confidence because I knew the team would deliver.
So that's that classic going against the herd mentality, isn't it?
Really, yeah. It's very easy to run with the herd, but the signs were all there. If you're prepared to push your business out there, we got this great slogan. I saw it in America actually. Tough market, tough agent.
Yeah, great.
Is that sort of thinking?
Well, let's talk. Okay, I was going to save it till a little bit later, but you know what? I basically need, this is part of my therapy because as you'll be well aware, I've got my top 10 list of terrifying people. It's always fair to say you were in that list. You and the likes of Paul Mackay up at Sarah Mains used to bully me intrinsically. And I remember probably one of my toughest ever, and I really didn't deserve to be in the industry, but I remembered, I don't know whether you described yourselves as it or I labelled you after the Yorkshire Mafia, yourself, Kevin Hollingrake, obviously now a great MP, Paul Cocker of Blundell's at the time there.
Yeah.
You got together in the room. You really weren't very happy about the software at the time. You thought you'd have a look at this new stuff they were talking about. And I remember that as being, that was, I needed 3 pairs of trousers or pants. That was. I think the moment you lost it was when I said what was an applicant. But anyway, well, you forgave me many moves later. How? Just talking about that. Clearly they were. None of those at that stage. I don't think Kevin and Hunters came west. So they ran partners, weren't they? Relocation agent network or home sale. They were in those days. How important was it for you to have those kind of relationships with characters like that?
Amazing.
Okay.
I mean, Ran in its early years was a revelation for me because I'd run my business. I lived 3 miles up the road from the office.
Yeah.
Unlike, I needed to travel for business. So I lived in this little world in North Leeds, which is great. And then suddenly Ran opened up lots of different things. Yeah. And the best of it, without a doubt, was the people who I met, some of whom were local, people like Kevin, remember Rick and his brother Keith, and Martin and all the crew from Hunters.
Yeah.
Paul and the Blundell's Lunatics.
Well, I've heard tale of a couple of the conferences that shall remain.
Tell you stories about those guys. And in fact, I'm still in touch with Paul on a regular basis.
Say hello. Always had a lot of time for him.
Lots of others, Keith Johnson. I can name them all. And
wasn't it? I mean, it genuinely was always market leader or thereabouts in the time. That was a wonderful thing. Yeah.
John Holman, another great guy. John Oswald down there. Yeah. I hope I haven't missed anybody. There's lots more. But the thing is,
you missed out the lads that the Romans crew were obviously
that Dale. I admired Dale a lot. Wasn't really. Dale was kept himself to himself.
Yeah, he always did, didn't he? Yeah.
Peter Cole's a nice guy, Vince and all those boys. But the lads in the north were my natural.
Chippy Northerners, you would be.
Yeah. But we learned a lot. We think we shared thoughts, we shared ideas. Shared worries,
because the difficult thing there, isn't it, is my perception of this a lot of the time is it can be quite a challenge actually when you boss your own area, but what does good look like in the rest of the areas? I mean, I'm looking over your shoulder there, and I can still recognise the old Sunday Times awards and everything else. And I do, a lot of people take a lazy cheap shot at that, but actually there's a wonderful thing in terms of being recognised for that, because it does show there was a real process about it, and people like Carl Tatler, a wonderful agent, obviously over there, was he kind of wanted to be the best. He went on an actual, on an almost tour of duty, going around those best when he didn't win it in the first year, as we always think we should do. And he went to those other agents and actually learned it. Well, that's just the nature of self-development, isn't it? Really, is there anything else?
I mean, a big kick up our backside was when we joined Ran, and in those days that was the only game in town. That was the awards, the dinner. I mean, it was an amazing event at its peak. And I think it was 19, I can't remember the date, when we'd been at one of the awards. We were sat at the back of the room. I think it was in Brighton, actually. I remember George Harrison had died, one of my all-time heroes. We sat right at the back of the room, but didn't feel engaged. And I remember David Punk and I, my business partner, saying, "We're not doing this again." Now, we could have walked out and thought, take that, which I probably would have done. David said, "You know what, Russell? Am I allowed to say a rude word here?"
Of course, yeah.
He said, "Fuck it. We're going to win this next year." Right?
Love
Agent, yeah. And actually, we did. We came back the next year. We put all the resources of the business into it. The team were absolutely up for it. We told them what we were trying to do, and they went for it. And we won it. And that kicked us off. Then we went to America. So all these amazing things.
That was for people who don't know, the demographic of one of the wonderful benefits is that you would go over there with Richard Tucker, and was it the last year's winners? I can't remember, but you'd get to go around the whole Sendant, as it was, operation over there as well, wasn't it?
I learned a lot over there. We met some amazing people. I mean, Americans are light years ahead. Talk about customers, honestly.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff, really good. We learn a lot about, again, the strength of our own team.
Yeah.
And you put yourself up against your peers, Blundell's, the hunters, the hunters in Birmingham, and so on and so forth. And you think, well, actually, we're good at some things, but I can learn a bit from here.
On that.
Yeah.
And just another aspect of kind of awards in themselves. I mean, I always thought that one of the great angles is it gave you a real focus. Also, in those years where actually you thought you hadn't done that much, just the putting together it made you realize how much you had developed, even though you might not have realized it. And again, getting the team behind it is wonderful. And even if it's just, you can't take everyone there, but for those team members that managed to go down there, it was a great pat on the back, wasn't it, for all of those as well?
Oh, it was. But the Sunday Times thing, which was that was a really big deal, because that's all done anonymously.
Yeah.
So you can put together a portfolio to tell some judging how wonderful you are. Well, that's fine. And I'm not knocking it, nothing wrong with it. But with the Sunday Times, best companies to work for, you're in a different league, as we learn. And that's, in fairness, it was Kevin Hollyrake and Hunters that made me think about that, because they'd done pretty well in it. And I was admired Kevin, and still do.
Yeah.
But I like to put our business up against that sort of quality, not just within our own industry, but really good companies across the whole sector. And it was fascinating. First year we did okay, not bad. Second year we did really well. We learned a lot from the interviews with the staff. They were part of it anonymously. They could say whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
We never found out. We learned an awful lot from it, and we put ourselves in the big marketplace out there, outside of our own little cozy property industry. That was a huge thing.
Okay. And what would you say? I mean, would it have been one of those awards? Famously, you've won the biggest ones around. What's been your proudest achievement today? Is it those awards, or has it been something else in the business itself per se?
No, not at all. I think it's great. I've loved it. Proudest achievement is that a business has made a difference to an awful lot of people, and I'm talking about a lot of our team. Some of them who are still with us today. You
have an incredibly loyal staff base, don't you? From memory,
we do. But today I've just said goodbye to one of our guy who's been with us 10 years. Really good guy.
Yeah,
he's amazing opportunity outside of the industry as it happens.
Yeah,
family environment, wants to take advantage of it, and I've wished him well. I've met amazing people on the journey.
Yeah,
I think the biggest pride I have is that we've made a difference. That difference continues with a great team here, led by Mark and the gang, Wendy and Alison and all the whole crew.
All a great crew, aren't they?
They're brilliant. And we've changed. We've made a difference with very strong communal stuff, as you know.
Of course, you are.
I'm chairman of a significant charity here in Leeds.
You do a lot for Macmillan as well, don't you? I believe.
For Macmillan, we've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for Macmillan.
Yeah, brilliant.
Amanda, my late wife.
I think I've banditted at a few of your golf days. If I
You've been golf days wearing the most ridiculous shorts and t-shirts. And I think the awards have been great, but it's a bit of an ego trip, really. If you do well, it's great. But it's the long haul that's, for me,
it's the big effect you're making on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And would you are you willing to say publicly what you feel your biggest mistake is, or does that have to?
Oh God, too many. Not listening sometimes.
Let me tell it differently then. Are you a bit like before when you're in the middle of the recession? You might not be able to accept the time. Are you able to look back on those now and say actually they were quite formative in terms of helping you around, or they helped you grow as the individual you are today, basically?
No doubt. Unfortunately, and again, it's a bit trite, but it's true. You tend only to learn when you get your backside kicked.
Mm-hmm.
When it's good and it's easy, you can think you're great, but actually it's not always the case. And it's when times are tough or when you make a mistake. There's certain situations I can look back on now and I think, perhaps we should have done this or we should have done that.
Not enough that it keeps you awake at night. You're able to that was a point in time choice, and you just move on.
I mean, I've got to look at the picture now from where I am now, and I can look back at an amazing career with amazing people.
Yeah. It is the nature of it, isn't it? Whatever, it gets lambasted by loads of people who should know better or don't even care about. But the one thing you just got, I don't know what the unique magic about the ingredients are, but the people within the industry they're just a fantastic combination.
People who are, the successful guys, they are inspirational people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed.
Someone summarised it to me is at a party, you'll never see a quiet estate agent, will you?
No, it's true.
Morning,
Foxton's of Peter Rollins has joined.
Rollins back, yeah.
He's amazing, that guy.
He is, yeah.
Nothing but admiration for what he's done.
No, he's not going to be a quiet non-exec, is he?
He's not going to be a quiet non-exec, and I'm sure that's why they're taking him on. So for me, it's like the clients and friends I've made. I've made great business colleagues who have, with a lifetime with them. My team here have been brilliant. And all the friends that I've had over the years in the estate agency world have been amazing. So what it does, Simon, thank God there's more success than failure in all of that.
Yeah.
Get a little older, it smooths it all out for you.
Yeah, it's nice.
And you can look back at the whole big picture.
What would you say has been, as a hugely, here's a question for you actually. Do you ever mind people describing you as a volume business? I mean, because you do huge numbers, don't you?
No, not at all. That's what we are. We're geared up to do volumes, whether it's mortgages or
stop you having the customer service ethos still, does it? That's, I suppose, that's the key. I suppose when people talk about volume business, sometimes they forget about you can do a bit of both, can't you? You don't have to just be stack it high, sell it low.
No, you don't, Sam, because you've got to think about it. If you look at our business, it's an amalgamation of quite a lot of relatively small branches.
Yeah.
Or, as I like to look at them, their own little businesses.
Yes. Yeah.
I like our managers to say, this is my business. I've got a stake in this business. That's why we remunerate our people on profit. They've got a really significant direct stake in their business. So it's lots of those little businesses that add up to the volume. So we try to treat each branch or each business as its own business.
Yeah.
And don't think of yourselves as a corporate.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So that actually where a lot of success out there in the wider world at the moment, a lot of the franchisees going from strength to strength. And of course, their big pitch is about, look, this is about you. But you're already doing that, but just you're able to cater for that underneath still a company structure.
Yes. What I think more and more is our job here is to provide support. I call it our sort of head office function. Sounds a bit corporate, but it is a head office function to support the people out there, give them the tools that they need to do their job, and let them go on and do it successfully.
So other than that element, what other dynamics of manning Stainton do you think set you apart from the competition?
I think determination. I think we are a very determined set of people. We don't like to lose.
No,
we really don't. I mean, I'm going to tempt fate. I still drive around the streets looking for sailboats and cursing if I see any competitor.
That's beautiful. I can imagine the poor branch manager getting the call from you as well.
I mean, about time I stopped doing that. In my own area where I live.
Yeah.
If I see a ball.
You mentioned Dale, didn't you? Dale was famous for that in terms of, looking at the offices. If there was something you didn't like there as well, they'd come in. Yeah.
I think
that's great, is it? Because that's still the passion. You've still got the passion. It is absolutely cool.
Yeah, and the team have that same passion. I don't think they're as quite as bonkers as I am.
No.
I completely.
No, I've tried to take your lad off the tracks, but I've managed to. Actually, we spoke about the golf day. I've got to tell you this. I still remember one of my favourite moments of you, and I've recounted this over. Was Mark? I think we'd played a 4-ball with Mark, and Mark, we got back to the clubhouse, which is the only bit of the game I enjoy. And he shouted across the bar. He said, "Whaley, what are you having?" And you caught his eye from across there, and he went, Whoa, Mark, what's suppliers pay? Suppliers pay. And I love that moment in terms of understanding is there. He took that as one of the key lessons of learning to take over the business.
No, the thing about Mark is he's a bit soft. It's like his mum. He's a bit soft. He's not quite as It's hard to say.
How proud are you? Let's do that. How proud are you of what you've seen? Because Mark is an incredibly young lad, but with with such a head on his body for his age, isn't he? Really, all that experience.
He's just turned 40. You know, I can't believe it.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely
disgusting.
In
his blood. You know, it's in his blood, and myself and David and Mike, sort of the old guys in the business. It's been instilled in all of the boys. We call them the boys because there's not just Mark, there's James.
That's right, David's lads in the auction side.
Boys in the business, Andrews, there's Matthew up in the Geisley. These boys, they are the loveliest lads, honestly. I can't say so. I'm very
no, they all know. I hope they come across.
And the thing they've all got in common is that they've got a pride in this business and the way we do it. They don't cut corners, they do it properly. And it's instilled in them.
Well, they get held to a different standard as well, because if you're working in a company like yours and you're related to the business, you've got to go above and beyond, haven't you, for fear of having the finger pointed back at you.
I always said to Mark when he first started, and he said, I remember when he's saying to me, Dad, I'd like to go in the business. And I'm saying, are you sure? He said, yeah, I want to do it. I said, well, you've got to remember one thing. Whatever you do, you have to do it at least as well, if not better than anybody else. Because if you slip below that line, all you're going to get is, oh, it's all right for him.
Yeah.
He's the boss, you know.
Yeah, many people think it's lucky, don't they? It's not lucky at all, because you are going to be held to that absolute standard there. But that's wonderful as well, isn't it? Because what that does is gives that continuity of culture and everything else. And as you said, that determination is only going to, because there's no way Mark can let you down. Because I could just imagine what that dinner could be like.
But he's ambitious as well, you know.
Yeah.
His ambitions are beyond mine now. In terms of what we feel we can do with our business. As you say, we've taken over the Riding and Dutton business, but we think there's other opportunities as well. Mark's very ambitious. Yeah. We're happy to work with him and the team. We're almost, in some respects, investors in our own business as well.
Are you able to leave it at the office, or does it become a busman's holiday? Is dinner table just continually talking, manning stuff?
Now I can. It took me a long time, but yeah, I'm enough confidence in our team here that they'll do what they need to do. And to be honest with you, if I interfere every time there's a mistake or something not right, you've got to, it's the only way you learn.
Yeah, of course it is.
They've got to make mistakes. I don't want them to make many mistakes, but they have to make mistakes.
So what would it be fair to say? What type of boss are you?
You have to ask my team. I don't know. I'd like to think.
How would you like to be perceived? That would be the first thing.
I'd like to be perceived as somebody who cared.
Yeah.
Who was passionate and is still passionate about his business.
Yeah.
Wouldn't suffer fools.
Which is a shame for me. I remember when we came into you on our first REPIT meeting, actually one of our first meetings, and you did have a reputation, as I said, of being very, very hard to please. And I remember there was I can't remember what it was. There was something that the software wasn't able to do with you, and what I loved about it was about that it was going to put undue pressure on the team, and and you said, look, we can't have that. I'm not having them, I'm not having it not work for them. And I thought that was a real eye-opener for me in terms of, on the face of it, I imagined you were just going to say, I'll kind of just get on with it. But it showed to me actually about that complete belief that you have in doing the right thing for your team.
You've got to fight for your team.
Yeah.
If you've got a team, but they've got the hardest job. I haven't. They're in the branch, they're getting it day in and day out. We've had a problem this month, for example, as everybody's aware of. Simply Conveyancing have got some real challenges out there. It's affecting the whole. We've got tons of stuff in the pipeline, and it's putting massive pressure on the team.
Yeah, just at a time where actually for the first time, because there was no seasonal break last year, and you would hope that this was going to be the first time actually get a bit of a well-earned break, wasn't it?
So I see my job is to fight, well, not so much now, but fight for the team, which I'll do to the death. If anybody really will fight for our team, I'll try and get them all the things they need. Don't succeed in all respects, but they've got to see that you've got their back. It's a tough job.
It is, yeah, it is. So to help with that job, how culture you've spoken about is really important. Obviously, you believe the belief, the fight for your team there.
Yeah.
What do you believe? How systemized are you, or how important do you think systems and processes were in supporting the business?
Well, look, I'm an old-fashioned guy, aren't I? And I don't like the word process. I hate the word itself. Systems, process.
Yeah,
It
just
tends to
it's
imply
not,
that you can mechanize everything. It'll do the job for you, which it can't, because you've got to engage with your clients and your customers. You've got to understand what is it that they actually need.
yeah,
And all the process and the system should do is just make it easier for you to do that job.
yeah,
So if you need information, it's there in front of you. You don't have to go to a filing cabinet, as we used to have to do, or it's
yeah,
not written down on a card. The information you need is there. The process, of course, there are processes now in terms of compliance and money laundering, all this stuff, which have to be done.
yeah.
But try to just make it as easy as possible so that people can do the job that they're actually there to do.
Yeah.
And what they're there to do is to help that person move.
So one of the things that keeps coming across in these interviews, I think, fine, is however you talk about it, ultimately, the tools of the job are to help the people have more of those human moments, those dollar productive moments, isn't it? That ultimately, that's what we can describe everything else as much as we want to, but that's what you want to do at the end of the day, isn't it?
I'll tell you what really upsets me. And I never say anything when I go in a branch, because it's not my place to say it. I'll speak to the manager quietly or one of the team here. I'm going round next week. I don't go round the branches too often these days, and haven't been allowed to do because of COVID. I'm calling my Santa Claus tour. And all it is to pop in, say, hello, how are you? Thanks for everything this year. They've worked so bloody hard, honestly. And, go and enjoy the break. And I know one thing I'll see, especially with the younger, the kids as I call them, is these computers that sit there in the chairs. They've got the computer right in front of their nose, and there's the customer chairs.
Yeah,
I hate it. I really, because it's just that barrier.
It's the break between them, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. All the computer's there to do is to retrieve information to help you help your client. And I see it as a sort of circle, not as as a means to an end. It's no different to me, as I used to do, filling in a card, people's information on it and all that stuff. And I think that part of the problem is the culture today amongst younger people is you've got to have a screen in front of you all the time.
Yeah, it can become. I mean, God, Christ, I come from the obviously the IT side of things ostensibly. So it should be shiny, but that almost box ticking role. Me and Peter Fenwick well as well, great lad. Obviously used to work. We used to have a little fun game which was totally geeky, but we used to phone up an estate agent so we could tell what software they were using because of the flow of questions. We knew that would match what the system was. And I know people like Julian O'Dell, who you obviously used over the years, despises that kind of formulaic approach that breaks the conversation.
I do. I hate it. But the culture, unfortunately, and it's a wider problem, I think, if you haven't got a phone in front of you or a tablet or a screen, it's almost a necessity. You see people walking around all the time, don't you? Sound like a proper old man there, with like this.
Yeah.
And for me, get all the screens out of the way. I know Foxes used to do this,
Yes.
They have the screens at the back of the office, and then they're nice sitting, they could sit and talk to a client.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to do that because we're much smaller branches and there's a lot going on. As you say, we are volume business.
But we need to take that from the travel. The travel industry went through it probably even more brutal. On the high street, they disappeared and they reinvented themselves, didn't they? So whether you want to call them pods or just sat down around a table, having the proper discussion to understand what was going on, I think that's a really interesting dynamic of some agents are clearly getting in and doing that.
Well,
and they will be the ones that I think will benefit going forward.
Well, some of these models that are out there at the moment, the individual models. I'm not going to mention names because there's no need for them. Guys who are working from home and dealing with a much lower volume. Actually, ironically, in a way, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you can't carry your computer system around with you.
No, you're absolutely right.
Your iPad. So you've got that engagement. And if I have a fear about how we do things and what we do, it's becoming so dependent on the IT that we're actually getting what we're there to do, and that's to work with the client. Help them on the emotional journey, as well as the actual physical journey.
That of course is massively important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's just talk about. We've spoken about a few of them already, but who are the people you respect most in the industry? Who get onto the Russell Manning list?
Gosh, well, I've mentioned Kevin.
Yep.
There's a guy here in Leeds, probably not many people know him, Jonathan Morgan, ran a phenomenal lettings, mainly lettings business in Leeds Centre. Very different business, very dynamic business.
I don't know whether it was you or whether it was Mark. He gave me a referral to talk to him, and he was so angry at the price that I gave him.
Will it be?
Yeah. So it probably was you, if I think about it now. Actually,
of all the people I've met in the industry, I'd say Jonathan, one of the most thought-provoking.
Oh, that's interesting.
And still is a great guy. So certainly him. I like to listen to people who've done well.
Yeah.
The truth. I have people who I admire outside of our industry, people who I know and supported me in my years, almost mentored me back the other way.
Is mentoring part of your kind of your development as well, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you have called it mentoring as well, or was that just a kind of the natural?
No, probably not. Yeah. No, it's a word that's evolved. I'm doing some of that myself, which I'm quite enjoying.
That's really good. Yeah.
I'm going to do nice younger people in different parts of the country who want a bit of help, and I'm enjoying doing that. I do it with our own team here.
Yeah.
I maybe not as much as I did, but I sit down often with managers, we have a cup of coffee, and tell me what's going on and some of your frustrations and what can we do to help. Yeah. And I try to get things done here. I mean, one of our offices needs the windows need doing. I was there a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
All the electrics are knackered, and I rang the people who deal with that stuff. I said, "What's going on? It's winter. We need a window." Well, the electricians told us he'd be there. I said, "Look, I'm going to ring him myself," and I did.
Yeah.
You won't work from us. This is where I do get a bit, head off a bit. I said, if you want to keep doing work for us, right, you better get yourself out there this week. Get the bloody, so who else? Well, my old mate Paul Cocker, I love Paul.
Paul, yeah.
And who else? I don't know really. Julian's a great guy. I admire Julian. I know he is.
What about on the supplier side, Russell? Are there any suppliers out there that are that win your plaudits over the years?
Well, to be honest, it's a long time since I've been engaged with the supplier side. I mean, obviously, I think we had a really good relationship with Rick Bitton, and I enjoyed that development within our business. Gary, I mean, I think
push the software. I mean, I always, as I said, my job was always to make myself more unpopular, and one of those was to describe you guys as really high maintenance. But I loved watching our techies squirm, because I knew what was going to come out on the other side of a project like you guys was the product was going to be 10 times easier for us to sell.
I'll tell you two people who, one of them sadly is no longer with us. Some people listening might remember Michael O'Flaherty. Michael worked for Roger Platts in Maidenhead.
Yeah, okay.
Roger Platts was part of the William H. Brown group, as it was in those days. Without a doubt, the best estate agent I ever met.
Really? Okay. Wow.
Yeah, without a doubt. He was on TV actually with Carol Vorderman for a long time. Brilliant guy, lovely man. Sadly, he passed away 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, right.
Without a doubt, I put him up against anybody. As a proper estate agent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A guy called Tony Snare, who was the chief executive of William H. Brown and been involved in Humbert's and Winkworth's, a proper English gentleman, decent man. And I really got a great deal from Tony. And then you meet other people, very dynamic people. Peter Brudnicki, he's another one.
Yeah, turned that into a huge business. Yeah.
Believe me, going to meet him with Peter, you're exhausted after half an hour.
Yeah.
The man's got so much energy, I don't know where he gets it from. And there are others that I've met on the journey, and I've been blessed with, and outside the industry as well.
Let's talk about being blessed. So Whaley the Magic Genie has got 3 wishes for you to help improve the industry. Can you think what you would do overnight to try and improve matters for everyone?
3. Gosh, that's a good one.
You can leave one unused for the future, but it's up to you.
I'd like to see a standard of an industry standard which leaves the business of selling property with a better reputation than it currently does. So
do you think Roper's going to improve that, or is that going to be? I
don't know. I've always had this sort of argument with myself about the need for qualifications, for regulations, and I think it can work very well in certain things and maybe not in others. The problem with the estate agent is you're dealing with a very emotive situation, and you get blamed for everything, whether it's your fault or not. The press love having a go at us because we're there for a good kicking, aren't we? So standards need to be better than they are.
Yeah,
don't doubt that. I think the legal, second thing, the legal system and the way that it's structured is just horrendous.
Yes, it's such an unfair playing field for you, isn't it? It really, in many ways.
It's really, and I blame people like us a part of the problem, because we've become part of the conveyancing process in terms of where we derive our income from. So I'm being completely honest. I don't think that the factory solution is providing the service that people want, but I think it's also partly the overwhelming amount of compliance and the difficulties that lenders provide. So the whole legal sector process is totally dysfunctional.
So just on that, Russell, you just reminded me there, one of the RAN conferences or home sale as it was there, I remember it was just as HIPs were going to be written off. Yes. I remember you giving one of the most impassioned speeches about, in terms of, kind of summarize it, throwing the baby out with the bathwater and everything else. By all means, it wasn't perfect, but we have something to work here. Just looking back on that now, I mean, Christ knows how long that was ago again now. What do you think? What do you think could have saved HIPs? Is there anything you can think off the top of your head that would have made that right, or ultimately was it just destined for failure?
Well, I don't think it was destined for failure, and I was a big supporter of it. And the moment you were talking about was when I had a go at Grant Chaps, who now
I'm always a big fan of.
Yeah, I don't know what he does now. He does something.
Yeah,
and he actually didn't have an answer.
No, do they ever?
We've gone so far down the line, and I really did believe that the idea of having a pack of information on your property was a really good call.
Yeah.
And different charging models would have evolved out of all of that.
It's funny though, there's a lot of people talking again now about whether it's voluntary or whatever else. They're trying to create this essentially the same pre-prepared information up front, and I think that shows.
It was the condition report, which the RICS didn't like.
Yeah.
The insurance industry didn't like, because there was issues of liabilities and where did all that sit.
Yeah.
I don't think the political pressure on the government to pull it was too great, and it was an easy pull. But actually, I think in hindsight, it was a terrible mistake. And I
remember the other gentleman, shall remain nameless, but I remember somebody staying up and ostensibly saying the same as you, and they would almost boo down. You stood up and the room quietened, and everyone went, Russell's, he's got some good points there. And I thought that really showed to me just the respect that people held you with, actually.
Well, I don't, but no, I think it was a moment which
missed moment.
It would have solved a lot of the problems that we currently have today, in my view. And I think the third wish is that people enjoy what they do.
Yeah, people forget.
That sounds pathetic.
No, you got it when you do the hours and people do the weeks that they do. Is you can't do that if that's a job, can you? It sounds so stupid, but actually turn that into something that you enjoy and everything else, and it becomes manageable and enjoyable by definition, doesn't it?
You've got to have some fun on the way. The old golfing thing. Ben Hogan, I can't remember the exact words. It's a great line. I always use it. Ben Hogan said, "Don't forget to stop and smell the flowers on the way."
Yeah,
I think there's a lot in that. We get so bogged down with our work and our demands of our clients and everything. We've got to have a bit of fun. We've got to enjoy it, get the best out of it. And then probably think, it's easy for him to sit there and say all that. But I always had fun, even in the tough times. We always made sure we had we had some fun involved, and enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, go and do something else.
Exactly right. Well, I can't think of a more uplifting way to leave this conversation here. Russell, I've got to say, it's been honestly been one of my pleasures of my career being able to deal with yourself with Manning Stainton, and obviously now dealing with all the new team and everything else there. It's always been one of the very best businesses, and I think that's genuinely been a joy for me to be just be able to on the periphery of it, dealing with yourself. So for myself, thank you for spending the time talking to us about it.
Pleasure, Simon, and I wish you continued success. I'm going to butter you up a bit here. I like what you've done. You're an individual. You're not going with the flow. And I've always prided myself on being a bit, individual. I don't like being told what to do and how I should do it.
No.
You know, I admire what you're doing, and I wish you all the very best for the future.
It's very kind. You know what it is? I think actually that probably what that defining meeting we were talking about before is when I was trying to do what everyone else was doing, which is to be I haven't been an estate agent, so you lot obviously hated me already. I was young, hated me even more. Young and fantastically good looking, and also the third one is I wasn't particularly good technically, so I had a triple whammy of weakness. But when I started, I tell you what it was when I started actually understanding and actually taking interest in your businesses and you know, and the success there, that it worked for me. And I think that was always the, you know, once you get that pride, isn't it? And once I saw you guys, like when we always used to be known as the loony table, didn't we, at Repick?
Yes.
We'd be cheering you guys on when you won as if it was our success. And we truly believe that that was whatever small part it was to be able to be involved is fantastic. So well, thank you for your kind words. As I said,
wish you all the best, Simon, and your team as well. All right.
Cheers. Thanks, Russell. Bye.
Well, see ya. Bye-bye.